Simon, before we go anywhere, keen to get your reaction to this because this is developing as I speak, as we expected. It's going to be some time yet before we learn further about what the fate of Manchester City may or may not be regarding FFP challenges and breaches, because we understand in the last few minutes, Mike Keegan of the Daily Mail, respected journalist, is telling us the date penciled in for the Premier League versus Manchester City. A trial is expected late autumn next year. So we're looking at just under a year from now is when we will know more about what lies ahead for Manchester City and those 113 or so FFP charges against them. Witness statements are currently being gathered. The verdict could not come probably before the end of the 24-25 season. So we are waiting a long time yet before we're going to find out what fate lies ahead for Manchester City.
And that's before you factor in any reality of an appeal, which will almost inevitably follow.
Yeah.
If Manchester City were to fall foul of any verdict, and if that appeal was to not be come to any fruition, they'd probably take it to the Court of Arbitration of Sport. I imagine Manchester City must be very disappointed with this timetable, because they're absolutely not guilty of anything. They are absolutely unequivocally able to prove it. So I imagine they must be very disappointed that this is taking so long to come to fruition.
You mean by that, somewhat tongue-in-cheek, that because they are so keen to prove their innocence, they want to do it like yesterday as opposed to a year from now?
I would assume so, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to bring, if you're defending yourself against the most unfair and unjust and spurious of allegations, you really don't want to wait a long time to do it, do you? You really want to get it done as quickly as possible, because you are unequivocal in your innocence, able to substantiate it to the highest level. I would imagine you want this done relatively quickly.
One other interesting aspect to this,
Just
Simon,
saying,
is that Pep Guardiola's contract ends 2025.
Yeah. He
could have come and gone before City know their fate regards FFP.
Yeah, could do. Could do. I mean, he made the observation, didn't he, if he ever felt there was anything wrong, that he'd been told by Manchester City's officials that never had they done anything wrong. And so subsequently he was comfortable with that information. And to be fair to him, in the conversations that he had, he wasn't equipped to answer the questions anyway. He's a football manager, not a financier. So I understood the reasons why he made the positions that he's taken. I think Pep Guardiola is incidental to the conversation. I think he may even stay longer at Man City.
But does that play into his thinking regards contract renewal?
Why? Because there's a potential
jeopardy. Well, and they don't know what they're going to face.
Well, what they're going to face is an innate ability, I should imagine, from Man City, if indeed they are found guilty, which they're a long way away from being found. These are just charges. These charges have to be defended. And it's one thing saying that someone's guilty of something, as we've seen with footballers that have been charged with the most heinous of crimes recently and have ultimately been found to be not guilty. So it's one thing moving from one set of charges to an actual conviction. I would want Manchester City to resolve this quickly. Now, Pep Guardiola, if indeed there is some foundation to these allegations and they're found guilty of, I mean, we've seen 115 charges. We do know we can conflate a lot of these charges down, and some of them are really incidental. They make 115, but some of them are really just nonsense. So you can probably get down to about 25 or 30 charges of any real validity or potential significance in terms of a charging mechanism. The fact is that we're seeing from Mike, who's a brilliant journalist, by the way, the idea that we're not going to hear anything for the best part of 2 years. First and foremost, if you have a trial, it's not a trial, it's a hearing. If you have a series of hearings where evidence is put forward and adjudication is determined, it does not take 9 months to get a verdict. Right? It doesn't. I don't mean to keep harking back to my past. I took a football manager to court in this country for the most difficult case to prove in English law, which is fraudulent misrepresentation. It did not take me 9 months, Dowie. It did not take me 9 months to get a verdict. And it was one of the most complicated, difficult cases to prove because it's one man's word against another. Fraudulent misrepresentation. Fraud is one of the highest burdens of proof you have to put.
Yeah, but that was in a court of law, right?
So what I'm saying is it does not take this process.
This is different.
Well, no, not really. Why not? Because you're talking about the same set of standards.
No, I just said it's a hearing. It's not a trial.
But by the same set of standards, you're appointing QCs. You're putting lawyers into place and you're putting an independent commission chaired by KCs, sorry. So with that in mind, you're getting the same sort of standard. The only reason that it's being allowed to take this passage of time is because that's how football operates at times. If you want to operate with a far greater degree of efficiency, a legal system that creaks in this country that isn't the most efficient can do it better, so they can do it better in football. They've got the bleeding money, for God's sakes. Let's have it right. So with that in mind...
how long does it take to collate witness statements?
Well, you tell me. Not long, does it?
I wouldn't have thought so.
Normally what takes time is being able to pencil in a hearing. What you tend to do with hearings in courts is you go through a set of preliminary hearings, directions hearings about where it's going to be this and where it's going to be that. And then you get your hearing. In this instance, Manchester City should want a speedy and expeditious outcome, shouldn't they?
They should do.
This is anything but that. And if Mike's supposition is right, which I don't doubt that it probably is, if there's some adverse findings from Man City, are we under the impression that they will accept that? I would imagine, given that their previous statements, given that Man City went to court to block the newspapers being able to be present in the hearings where information was being made available at Man City, they operate in a certain way. I think sunlight is the greatest disinfectant. I would like to see a degree of transparency about this, and that this matter be cleared up very quickly. Okay. The fact of the matter is, it's not going to be cleared up until, I would imagine, somewhere looking like 2030.
What? 2030?
Right, if you're not getting an outcome until 2025, okay, what do you think is going to happen with an appeal? The appeal will take another 18 months. That's 26, nearly 27. Then you go to the Court of Arbitration of Sport. 28, 29. Not far off, is it?
Are you at it here? 2030.
Work it out.
I'll be 73. You'll still be doing this show.
Well, I bloody won't. Work it out. If you're not getting an outcome till 25, then you get an appeal. An appeal takes X amount of time because there's no hurry to get that done. That takes you to the middle of 26, 27. If the appeal comes out 6 months later, that takes you to the middle of 27, 28. You go to the Court of Arbitration of Sport. It's not going to take much of a leap to suggest that this outcome might not be determined until 2029, 2030.
Good God. So Guardiola's contract ends 2025. He could have won the Champions League 5 times with a different club. The verdict then, we're told by Mike Keegan, advised by Mike Keegan of the Mail, could come at the end of the 24-25 season. That's far enough off. Simon thinks, no, add another 5 years onto that, and we're looking at 2030.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.